Our last speaker is Rabbi Menachem Bauman. When I reached out to Menachem last week here about saying a few words, he told me he wants to think about it overnight and call me back the next day, which he did. And he explained to me that he's a very private person and spent his entire life under the radar. And the circumstance of this tragedy gave him the impetus to feel it's some kind of shlichus for him to come and give divrei chizuk when he's asked. We give him a big shkoyach for coming all the way from Monsey here tonight. We wish him hatzlacha and besuras toivas. And we call Rabbi Menachem Bauman to give us divrei chizuk.
Shus Rabbanim, Shus Kol HaKodesh Hazeh. I have been taken straight out of my comfort zone. I prefer the back row in the Beis Medrash, Beis Kinnus. However, as was stated just now, there's circumstances. I was driving down to Norfolk for Shabbos, for the Shabbos after the Shiva. I was driving with my family. We were going from Monsey, going down to Norfolk to spend Shabbos with my daughter-in-law, with my grandkids. On the way down, we listened to a shir. It was a shir by Rav Moshe Tuvia Leaf. And the whole theme of the shir was, know how to read the road signs. I listened to that shir. I paid very close attention to it. Not only because he mentioned my son Reuven in that shir, but because I came to appreciate and start to think about, yes, maybe I do have to step out sometimes of my comfort zone. Of course, I'll be talking about our own personal tragedy, but I'm going to try to share some thoughts that perhaps can apply to everybody, we can all use. I mentioned at Reuven's Levaya that we talk about bitachon, we learn about bitachon, we teach about bitachon, and when things are going okay, we think we're doing well with bitachon. But then it comes time to see Kadosh Baruch Hu throws something at us, and now it's time for real bitachon. We learned yesterday, v'darashta v'yigidu lecha is davar hamishpat. We need to hear Das Torah. I'd like to share two thoughts that came from Chaim Kanievsky Shlita at the time. First one is, the Chaim was asked, we know that shluchei mitzvah and nizokin. How could such a thing happen to my son, to Reuven? Reuven went out, he was taking care of these children as a mechanech. He went out to save a child's life, which seemingly he did, and doing that, nizokin, what happened to him? Reb Chaim's answer, which I repeated at my Shabbos table last week because it hit me that we were in Elul, Reb Chaim's answer was that the Gzeira came already last Rosh Hashanah. The date, the time, was already from last year. However, Kadosh Baruch Hu, and I think it's my application of the Galgalin Zechus Al Yidei Zakai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it that at the time he would be taking care of these children. At the time he would do a tremendous Kiddush Hashem. He'd bring tremendous Achdus, and all of this would be a zechus to his neshama that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to give him at that particular time, and to add zechuyos to all of Klal Yisrael. On the fourth day of the search, as you probably know, Reuven was missing for quite a few days. He disappeared in the water and was not found till 5 days later. The fourth day after he was nifter, Message came from Reb Chaim. Es wird sein gut. Now we know that when Reb Chaim says something, you have to try to figure out what was he telling us. Fourth day of this search, he's been out in the water. Is he hanging on to something? Is he around? We didn't have very much hope. But we knew that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was taking care. Es wird sein good. What's going to be good? What was good was the fact that he was found. The fact that he was found. He didn't have to be found, although the Coast Guard said eventually he would be found. The fact that he was found was good. What was good? Our fourth bracha in Birchas Hamazon, Hatov v'Hameitiv shenitnu lekavura. My understanding is that's what Reb Chaim meant when he says it's that sign good. You have to see the good, even in time of tragedy. Yet, Baruch Hashem, it was a tremendous feeling that we were able to bring him to proper kever. Like Al Amcha B'Chasecha Sela, we have to understand what the bracha is. The Am must understand where the bracha is. It's not so easy sometimes. Moving along with this theme of having been found, the search and its having been found, it's impossible for me to extend my Hakaras HaTov to everybody, every organization, every person that was involved in davening, in learning, in saying Tehillim, in the search, in helping the family, in whatever it was that took place in that time. It was an amazing, amazing time of chesed throughout Klal Yisrael. The stories that I heard, how Norfolk ran out of kosher food because of all the people who came down to help. They had to go and import food. But there were so many things, and there were so many organizations, so many individuals. But I'm going to single out 3 people and not name any of them, because I can't. There's a man in Norfolk who, I'm sorry, back up a moment. The Navy and the Coast Guard went searching. After a day, it was no longer, it was search and rescue, it was recovery. They called it a day. They did it, they did what they could do, and with all the Hakaras HaTov, for everything that they did do, time was up and they were not going to be involved anymore. There's a man, a balabas in the shul in Norfolk. If you were there in the shul, you'd say it's just another balabas like anybody else there. Okay, he got things going again. I don't know exactly what he did. I heard something about a state senator. I heard the Coast Guard, the Navy, the largest Navy base in the world in population is in Norfolk. The Navy was looking, but as a job, I would have to say. And who actually found Reuven? It wasn't the Navy and it wasn't the Coast Guard. People like this man who got things moving, and all the searchers, they were our people. The people at the shore said, "You're not going to find him. It's ridiculous." And even to the point where the ones who found him, our people who found him, said that it was a nace that they found him as they did. Because our people really, really cared to go out, and it meant everything to them. These are heroes. This man in Norfolk who got things moving, you know what I saw of him? Shabbos afternoon, I sat down with a couple of Reuven's charusas, because Reuven wasn't there. I sat to learn with them, and then this man came over and he gave a shiur. That's how I know this man. That he did so much. He was so involved, and he made things happen. You never know. He wants to stay anonymous. I can't tell you who he is. I spoke when we were coming back for the Kavura. I went over to the person who really probably was our person who oversaw the whole search. The one from one of our organizations, and he was our liaison to know what was going on. I went over to him and I said, "I just want to say thank you, and he couldn't even look at me. He just said, "You should see no more tzara." I went over to the man whose private jet had just flown us up from Norfolk for the Kavura. I said, "I just want to say thank you. He looked down, he said, "You should see no more tzara." I can't tell you who these people are. It's the last thing that they would want me to do. But who are the real heroes? These are our real heroes. What I learned from these people. I am here for this special moment of Chizuk and Elul. It's not a time for Hespedim, but my question is, why was it Reuven? What can we learn from somebody like Reuven, whose life was taken in such a way? Rabbi Leaf actually touched on quite a bit of what I want to say already, and I thank you. He was a miyached, he was a unifier. He was a unifier from the get-go. During the Shiva and after, the people that we heard from who were in yeshiva with him, from elementary school in New Jersey to Washington Heights, to Scranton, to Eretz Yisrael, to Elizabeth, to Savannah, and to Norfolk. There were no barriers, whether it was in the younger years with those who were older or younger than him, those who were doing as well as him or not as well as him in school, those who he helped out. There were so many who came over and said, I came into yeshiva, I was kind of lost, but he came over to me. People came over the same way in Savannah and in Norfolk. That they were not looking, but he found. And he was a unifier of all these people. He was consistent, as the Rav said earlier, in the Siddurim, in the davening. He was dependable. He had the Seder before davening. He started a Parsha shir on Friday nights in Norfolk, which they never had before. The children ran to him to learn with him. I saw this in Savannah. I saw those who had already graduated, maybe not even have had him as a Rebbe. They were learning in yeshiva, and Ben Azmanim, they came home, and on Yom Tov, they came to learn with him. Somehow or other, just in his Hadras Panim, and in his very quiet way, people were attracted and they were drawn to him. He was a real unifier. Some of these people were very unaffiliated with Yiddishkeit. I heard of someone I heard recently of someone who the shul didn't know that this person had any affiliation with anything, just showed up once or twice, and found out later on, after Reuven's Petira, this person said, yes, he had a tremendous effect on me. He was a real unifier and he was a real mekarev, but he did not do it loudly. He just did it and he got it done. You may be aware that Reuven wrote a book. He wrote it about a year and a half, he finished it about a year and a half ago, he published it. It was a kid's book. Why did he write a book? For what kind of fame? What was the purpose? I'm going to read what his words out of the book. It's a kid's book. It's about I've always enjoyed reading stories about our Gedolim. The stories inspire me and make me want to be just like them. I love the fact that people who were so great in their Torah learning were also so great in their midos. The two must go together. However, I know that even after reading or listening to stories about these great people, it's still hard to learn from their examples and apply them to our own daily lives. So I thought it would be a great idea to write the story about a young boy with typical issues and challenges. The story shows you how he learns valuable lessons from a gadol, manages to apply them to his own life, and even improves his own midos and love for learning Torah. He even becomes a happier boy through the process. I have to tell you, honestly, I've heard from a couple people. I'll tell you about the first time. This was before Reuven was taken from us. I have a son who's a Rebbe in Toronto. He had a boy in his class who he wanted to help out. And he said to the boy, what do you do on Shabbos afternoons? He says, I read. What do you read? Harry Potter, the usual kind of things that those boys would be reading. And my son said, okay, I have an idea. He said, my brother wrote a book. Would you like to read the book? I'll give it to you over Shabbos. He says, yeah. Boy read the book. Came back on Sunday, gave my son the book. He said, I loved it. It was so great. It's just a beautiful thing. It's all about Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky and how you could be just like Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. And I want to be like Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. Of course, my son was thrilled. And a couple of days later, my son gets an email from the boy's mother. The boy changed. The boy's so positive. The boy just wants to be like Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. Wants to be like Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. Wow. So my son emailed Reuven and told him about it. And Reuven responded and said, I wasn't sure if it was worth the effort. I wasn't sure if I really wanted to go through with it. I wasn't sure if it was going to happen. He says, now I see that it was really worthwhile. We found out after Reuven's Patiri, he was in the middle of a new book because he felt it was worth it. But this book also raised some eyebrows. Rav Mordechai Kamenetsky Shlita came to us during the Shiva, and he said, I heard about this book about my Zayda. Who's writing? What are they writing? You're going to write about my Zayda? Tell me about it. I want to know what's going on. Will I approve? Ended up, and some of you may have read his article, which he presented us with at that point, ended up that he got the book, he loved it so much that he made it part of his yeshiva's curriculum, and it's in his home. Why? Because he saw the emes in the writer's mind. He saw what Reuven was trying to accomplish. It was pure and it was right. So you have these success stories. I've heard other stories also. A teacher came to me in my school and said, I bought the book, I read it to my children, and they had to read it over and over again to them. Why? Because he connected. He connected with people of all types, of all ages, in all kinds of places. It could have been in Brooklyn, in Muncie, it could have been in Elizabeth, it could have been Savannah, it could have been, didn't matter. And the age, I can assure you, did not matter either. I'd like to end up with two concerns that I have to come out of all this, if I may. Because I want to know how to read the road signs. It's my own thoughts. We know that sometimes some amazing thing happens in the world, and we all get shaken by it, in whatever way. And it's real Hisoris Tshuva, and people really want to do better, and people are really, it's like the whole Jewish world is excited. And people say, it's got to be Mashiach's time, this is it. I remember that happened, although I was a kid at that time, after the 6-Day War. And what happens after a while, things start to level off. Start to not quite keep it going. It's like they're going to make tshuva, try to take a chumrah, and then afterwards let it go. But the idea is at least try to hang on to whatever we can, even afterwards. And that's what concern number one, that we don't let this summer, not just my son Reuven, but don't let this summer go by forgotten. No, it's something that we have to keep on learning from. The other thing, which I'm a little hesitant to say, is that when we talk about Achdus of Yisrael, and we talk about all the different sectors of Yisrael that got together, and I don't like using labels, but we talk about all different types. I hope we will realize that somebody like Reuven went way beyond those labels, those people. The people who he connected with very often were people who I would have trouble, I think many of us may have trouble really making the connection with, but we certainly have to admire and we have to daven for those who are making those connections and bringing those who are really, really further out closer to us. If we can accomplish these things, that maybe this year can be the final year of the Gula Shlema. Thank you.
Shem Hakelim Shuter, I'd like to be Shekach to Rabbi Bauman for the inspiring words.